welcome back inside the State Champs Sports Network studio for episode 9 of State Champs Michigan's Hangtime, powered by Lawrence Technological University. Visit ltu.edu or to find out about the over 24 athletic programs offered here at Lawrence Tech, including men's basketball. Just go to ltuathletics.com. My name is Lorne Plant, and I am joined, of course, by Scott Burnstein and TJ Kelley as we get ready because district playoffs are starting up next week. But we have some stuff we want to get into, and we do want to start off the show with a big shout out because we gave Greg Gray some attention, and apparently
GG3 went for a 40 ball within 48 hours of us, or maybe within 24 hours of us shouting him out on the show. His ears were ringing, made me look really smart. Thanks, GG, and to his pops, G2, I guess. I always just knew him as Greg Grays. I didn't realize he was a junior, but I guess he was a junior. And one of the greatest scorers that I've ever seen at the high school level in person was his dad. Had a 61 or 2-point game his senior year in the late 90s, and it looks like GG3 is following in those footsteps. I said last week that he's a guy that I think over the next 3 years will be scoring 25 to 30 a night. This year he's at about 20. And I think that 40-point game was a foreshadowing.
Well, I think he's definitely going to outscore his dad in the career. If you look at Greg Gray's, wound up going to the Breslin Center his junior year, but you look at all the talent that Southfield Lathrop had on that team with Mike Chappelle, Craig Urquhart, obviously Myron Brown, Brandon Barrett, who's now the coach at UPrep. But Reggie Butler will be another one of those guys that's on that team.
They had 4 Division I kids on that team.
And the thing is just getting to spread the wealth. One thing that I really like about for Greg Gray's situation at Farmington is that he gets to go, learn under one of the best coaches in the state with Derek McDowell, who's had a Mr. Basketball in his own right at Deion Harris back in the 17 years ago, 2005 or 4 or something like that, with Deion Harris at Redford. But he's going to place them out there right. He's going to teach him how to play the right way. He's already taller than his dad, 6'2", 6'3". Shout out to Wisconsin for making this trip down to Warren Lincoln, and they were able to see him. Sharif Chambliss is assistant coach there, and was at Penn State as well as Greg Graves was there. So, a small world and guys getting it done. So.
Well, exactly, and now that Farmington, again, it's just 2 high schools. North Farmington can't have all the talent. So it looks like they're building something great at Farmington, and who knows, we may have a great rivalry that broods just between
even
the city.
Just next year, Tyler Spratt and Landon Williams against the sophomore Greg Grays, GG3.
Well, you mentioned Mr. Basketball, and that's where we're taking this conversation just to start this particular show. As of recording, we do not know who the 5 Mr. Basketball finalists are, but it is released on Friday, so by the time this show comes out, it's very possible you're going to know who those candidates are. Maybe it'll be 5, maybe it'll be 4. Generally, it usually is 5. There's enough talent, certainly, to say that there will be 5 this year, but just for fun, and you're going to know by the time you see this if you were right or not. Who are those 5? We'll start with you, Scott.
My 5, but I'm going to do it the first 3 in order. These are my top 3, and then I'll give them bottom 2. Right now, my top 3 is Caden Brown from Grand Rapids Catholic Central, Curtis Williams from Birmingham Brother Rice, and Tyler Jamison from Port Huron Northern. So I think Sonny Wilson will get in, and I assume RJ Taylor will also get in, the point guard from Grand Lake. Sonny's from UDJ. So that's my 5. And I didn't have Curtis in my top 5, I think 3 weeks ago. But when you win the Catholic League in the fashion that they won the Catholic League, they only had 1 loss in that entire just gauntlet of a schedule. I'm talking about they only have 1 loss on the season, but they also only have 1 loss in Catholic League play. This is the last 2 years is the best the Catholic League's been top to bottom, the Catholic League Central, in a good 20 years. So and then just like with Greg Grays, whose ears were ringing, when we did the last segment on who our Mr. Basketball candidates were, and I left Curtis off my ballot, said that there was too many basketball, or not enough basketballs to go around in Brother Rice. He goes off for 30 the next game, and it's like, hey, Bernstein, I'm putting that 30 ball right in your face and letting you know that I'm a true blue top contender for Mr. Basketball, and right now I got him at the 2 spot.
It's got to be.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think that this is for a senior award. I think that what Curtis has done is nothing short of great. Obviously, a lot of talent that's on that team.
Sure.
But I think it speaks volumes when we have the state's #1 player who's also on that Mr. Basketball list, especially if he winds up winning. I just think it just carries over because, down the road you can say, oh yeah, that guy right there, and we were correct.
Yes.
But yes, Sonny Wilson, he's in my top 3. I don't think that, the Cubs are the Cubs. Even though Pat Donnelly is one of the best coaches out there, they're not in the same position as they would be without Sonny. I'm going to have R.J. Taylor, and I just think that his resume speaks for itself. And the other thing is, it's not all about stats. We've talked about the 2013 class when we had Bishop Robinson, quite a few other kids that led the state in scoring, but didn't make the list. So I'll have R.J. Taylor on that list as well. Obviously, Caden Brown. So I'm going to go with that's my firm 4. And then when you talk about the 5th guy, Hutch Ward has meant so much to Kalamazoo Central for what he's done. Obviously, Tyler Jamison. I'm not sure if the injury kind of slowed him down a little bit, but I really like what he brings to the table. And then you have Ryan Hurst. So I would be A, B, and C as far as that would go. But yeah, definitely those 4 with Brown, Wilson, R.J. Taylor, and Curtis Williams.
I slid Hurst out and brought Williams in the last 3 weeks. And that's no disrespect to Ryan Hurst.
You'll never live it down.
Right.
Yeah,
who will go down as one of the
the
greatest basketball players to ever come through the city of Farmington. No matter what happens with Ryan Hurst, whether they go on to the Breslin Center, whether he becomes a Mr. Basketball candidate or not, he can always hang his hat.
Now it's Greg Graves. He's going to have that title.
Well, I think that what I said was
I'm kidding.
No, what I said was Ryan Hurst was one of the greatest, and Greg Graves will be that next GOAT, or not GOAT, but one of the has a chance to be the GOAT, one of the next big time superstar hoopsters to come through that city.
And we'll get to it later. But in our rankings, we have North Farmington 2 for a reason, and he's a big part of it. And that team can definitely go on a run and go very far. But we'll get into that later in the program. Let's get into a little bit of what we call game recaps. And basically what this is the games that we covered here on the State Champ Sports Network, which you can check out on our various platforms, especially IG. Check it out on TikTok, on Facebook. We have some of these things put up as YouTube Shorts, Twitter, you name it. You can find it on the State Champs Sports Network. Just look for State Champs Michigan as the account. All right, first off, in the OAA Red, we had Hudsonville and East Kentwood getting together last Friday. EK wins that title outright, 61-49. In the OK Blue Conference title game, it was Coopersville and Hamilton. Brant Goodpaster hit a game-winning three-pointer at the buzzer as Hamilton beat Coopersville 57-54. It was the school's first conference championship since my senior year of high school, which was 1988. You should say wow, because I'm old. But good on Hamilton, and good for them to get some success. In the Catholic League, we had 2 big championship games that took place last Friday. Loyola and Riverview. Gabriel Richard was the first one. Number 7 Loyola started the game shooting 0 for 11, just 15 points in the first half. Defensively, they played very well, won their first Catholic League title since 2010, beating Riverview Gabriel Richard 53-42. And then finally, and then we'll get you guys to talk about these. And in the Bishop Championship, it was number 3 Rice, number 5 UofD, junior Warren Marshall laying it down. Team high 25 points. Rice gets by UD Jesuit. We talked about Sonny Wilson already, and he led all scorers with 31 points. A heck of a comeback for that team. They were storming in the fourth, but they still fall short, 68-63. Regardless of the asterisks from a couple of years ago, first Catholic League boys title for Brother Rice since 1990.
The asterisk was for appearance
in
the final game, but they had never won since 33 years ago.
Okay, well there you go then. So
I think Paul Grant was on the team.
Paul Grant was on.
And he went on to play in the NBA for a second. And was at Wisconsin and Boston
College and went to Wisconsin. Wade Crawford from Southfield Lathrop wound up hitting the game-winning 3 to end Paul Grant's senior year. If I can bring that up.
But it's been a pretty significant dry spell for a program that throughout the 70s and 80s was a perennial top 5 in the state. They won the state title in '74. Yeah. Went to I know when they went to a Final Four with B.J. Armstrong in '84, '85. And
played against Magic Johnson.
Right. Well, that was the '77 state finals, where Kevin Smith hit a half quarter, which tied the game, but in modern rules would have won the game. Mm-hmm. It was just a 2-pointer at that time. That's right. And they lost to Magic Johnson in overtime. Yeah. But yeah, so a rich tradition, a storied history of basketball that went, unfortunately, pretty dormant for almost 3 decades until Rick Palmer came through the door. And, mission accomplished. Yep. 5-year plan. They've won a couple districts. Hadn't won a Catholic League title. Now they have. Check that off the list. And, I'll throw it over to TJ, but a coming out party for Warren Marshall. Mm-hmm. Next man up on deck. He'll be a senior next year. He'll be one of the best players in the state. Yep. Has quietly been doing his thing. He started last year. And he started to show flashes, and then this year it's really blossomed into this is a division. I think this is a Division I basketball player. Right now he's got D2 offers, but I think the D1 schools will be coming in soon, and that was just a gem of an effort on the biggest stage in Kelley.
Yeah, they're deep, no doubt.
Yep. And usually, guys are picking up offers, during the spring with their grassroots team. Brother Rice winds up going ahead and winning. There are going to be that many college coaches that are going to see Warren Marshall, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do make a run. Obviously, getting through their district, getting through regionals. Yep. Then, if they go that far, I would imagine that Warren Marshall will probably pick up a Division I offer because I don't think that the Warriors. Well, let's say this: the Warriors need him to play like he did, just to give them that fourth option. Yep. I mean, guarding 1 or 2 guys is tough enough, but then when you have 3 guys, and all of a sudden. There are Division I players that can put up buckets in a heartbeat or beat you in many different ways.
Really
adding that fourth option, he's built like Kerry Kittles. The first time I saw him, I think it was freshman year, and freshman or sophomore year, and I'm watching him in the, just in the open, or I think it was sophomore year, just in an open gym, and exactly what you said, just smooth. He's built like a Kerry Kittles, like a Rip Hamilton. He's slender, but hey, he gets to his spots. He's efficient, doesn't need a lot of dribbles, and his athleticism is starting to come along. We saw the baseline dunk, and those are the things that really open up eyes.
I don't think I've seen the kid break a sweat. And I'm not saying that he doesn't play hard. He plays really hard. Yeah. It just looks, he's got a very level head. He isn't somebody that's been pressing the issue in terms of, why don't I have more offers? He's just kind of like, I'm going to control what I can control. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to play my game. I understand that I'm playing with 3 kids that are going to Division I next year. They're the seniors. They're the ones that are going to be the number 1, number 2, number 3 option. And I'm just going to do my thing. And him doing his thing, just letting the chips fall where they may, has been the best approach. And I think it speaks to the type of kid he is, the type of kid you're going to be recruiting. Who is just going to come in there and get in where he can fit in.
No, he's a great kid. And then if you talk about the earlier game with Loyola versus Riverview, Gabriel Richard, and I'm going to talk about a few of these same kind of circumstances when we talk about our districts coming up soon. Yeah. But, Loyola, they graduate a lot. Riverview, Gabriel Richard, they had kind of a rebuilding, wound up making it to the semifinals last year in Division III. Yep. I think that Riverview, Gabriel Richard winds up winning the Cardinal title next year, and perhaps the next 2 years. Coach Dyack has a great core right there. Luke Westerdale, talking about coming out parties. He's only a sophomore, but he's a name to really keep in mind because he can put up buckets. It reminds me a lot of one Jack Ammerman, who was one of the best shooters in the state. Wound up going to Skyline, wound up going to Northwood. He's enjoying his time in Hawaii right now, playing on their team right now. So, but yeah, he's a little bit bigger. He's a little bit bigger than Western, or a little bit bigger than Ammerman, but shoots it maybe not at the same clip because Ammerman's like in that Brad Redford kind of stretch right there. Yes. But I'd really look for Gabriel Richard to be the champions for next year. But Loyola has unfinished business. Like Bishop or like Brother Rice, it would not surprise me at all if both of those teams wind up winning the state title.
Ammerman's team was the number 1 team the whole season. They should have not should have. They had a very good chance to go to Breslin in the quarterfinals. They lost on a buzzer beater at Callahan, no by Trayvon Maddox.
Yeah, but that's when Trey Maddox went on that stretch and stuff like that because he wound up hitting a game-winning three
He
against.
hit like three game winners in the state tournament or something.
Yeah, but one of them also came against Belleville, and I believe Gabe Brown was on that team, maybe.
Yep.
So
that was insane.
Whew, those are some great games.
And Trayvon's at Western now. He was at Oakland. Then he was at Cal State Fullerton.
But
everywhere he's gone, he started and played well.
All right, so there you go, a little update. Now on Tuesday, we had a couple of games that we covered here on the network. Number 17, KZU Central, and number 5, Muskegon got together. Big Reds win 67-60 in that one. Number 15, Ferndale, and number 2, North Farmington getting together. North Farmington clinching the OAA Red with a 73-54 win.
Tough to beat at home.
Yeah.
You know, the Raiders, they're playing like they have unfinished business. Hey, this is what we're supposed to do. I'm not. They're not. They're going to play one game at a time. But there's no doubt in my mind that they're looking to obviously win their district. They should go through and wind up winning that. You've got Henry Ford, might give them a little bit of a hiccup. Don't forget that Henry Ford upset King earlier in the year, so they have that in them. I'm not sure that Greg G3 is wound up going to come through and be able to beat North Farmington. But I think that the Raiders have their eye on some of those teams that are in the Catholic League if they wind up going that far to get to the regionals.
I'll comment on Ferndale. It's been an up and down season. I think they're going to finish the year something around like 13-8. I still expect this group to make a run. They've made, this is the first year in 3 years that they have not won the OAA Red. They were 2-time defending champions, so they've been unseated by North Farmington. But I still expect them to be playing at Breslin Center in the Division II Final Four. I think the schedule they played in the OAA Red is only going to benefit them come March Madness. And the one thing, game within the game here, or deep diving the roster here, Noah Blocker has gone from a guy that
was just a shooter. Now he's scoring on the block.
Right. He was just a shooter. He was just kind of like a piece of the puzzle that was someone that was a very someone that you were surprised was giving you so much last year, because I don't think he played varsity as a sophomore. And then this year he is really exploded and expanded his game to where he's more than just a shooter. Last night he had 28 points. He had
the ball on the floor,
6 3-pointers. He can put the ball on the floor. And that's really alleviating some of the burden from Caleb Renfro, who was, viewed at the start of the season. He's a veteran. He was hurt all last year, but had started on as a freshman and sophomore, helped them make those runs. And I think the return from injury has taken a little bit longer for him to get into the swing of things. Sure. So what I'm saying is, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but what I'm saying is Noah Blocker has stepped in and filled that void, and that's only going to help them in the playoffs. Hopefully Caleb Renfro will then kind of reach his stride while they're making their tournament run, and then you got the 1-2 punch there, and that's not counting Chris Williams, that's not counting Cam Reed, that's not counting Jaden Hardiman on the block. So I think that what Noah Blocker's done and what that will do for that team going forward has just been a huge X factor.
Yeah, Chris Williams, I'm glad you brought him up. He's another guy that, has developed under the tutelage of Juan Rickman.
He can hit threes now.
Because he's a guy that was more of just a run and jump athlete with a 4.0 GPA a year ago. Now all of a sudden it's the confidence that they have. All right, I can make this, and you can see it, in game. They expect themselves to make that, Even when I'm seeing Noah put the ball on the floor, it's like the same thing as seeing Chris put the ball on the floor. I was like, a year ago, these guys, walking on thin ice and stuff like that in their own minds.
Well, for Noah, it was just like he was taking kickouts and he was hitting open threes, and that's. Hey man, you need people to hit open threes, but there was nothing about him where you're like, oh, this is a go-to guy, and he's become a go-to guy this year.
Yep, and now they're being scouted. But you know what? As you look in that Ferndale, I'm going to bring up something in my districts where they all got to meet up with somebody in regional, and there's a big district that they got to meet up with.
All right, well, good. Tease that. We'll talk about that in just a bit. In the meantime, we're going to take a break just to give you a little snippet of the interview that I had with Brother Rice head coach Rick Palmer. Now, he has had really done an unbelievable job.
Everything he said he was going to do, he's come in and he's done.
He really has. He is a young coach, very passionate, has had this group that he's really built with. Everything was built really towards this year, and we'll see what happens. But again, they win their first Catholic League title since 1990. So good on him, and he's a great young man, and he is also the second guy in a row in a week that was an Albion Hall of Famer. So we had Milton Barnes last week from the 70s, and we have from the 2000s, we have Rick Palmer. So we talked a little bit about that and so much more. Here's a snippet of that conversation. When you envisioned how your first 4 years would go at the helm of this team, compared now to that reality, what has been the most rewarding and the most challenging aspect of the job?
The challenging part about the job has been just how good the league got. Like, I think our teams in the last couple years, 12, 13, 14 years ago in the Catholic League would have won the league.
Yeah.
Just the teams we've had and the competition in our league has been outstanding. And I know some of that when you're a 5-team league and there's one team that's really kind of been at the basement, which was us. When it comes to 5, programs, I think everybody kind of elevated around the same time. So, so the challenging part has just been how good our league is, and the coaching's so good, and all the 5 coaches do such a great job, or the other 4 coaches, and their scouting reports, and how they playing them 3-4 times a year, and it gets really challenging, but really rewarding. And then the rewarding part, everyone can look at the 20-1 record. And right now, and I think we're about to play in the first Operation Friendship maybe ever. That was number 1 versus number 2 in the state. And go on this tournament run, hopefully long tournament run. Everyone can look at the trophies and everything we've accomplished this year as the rewarding part. But for me, it's just been the relationships and the growth of our guys.
Well, I want to thank Coach Palmer once again for joining me for this week's Chalk Talk. Great conversation, and really look forward to seeing how they are going to play not only this Friday, which we're going to talk about here in just a bit, but also how they do this year in the playoffs. And I do want to say that, the impact, and you guys have talked about this before, but again, just your thoughts briefly just on what he's been able to do and what he will do.
I said it last week, and I'll just reemphasize. He brings so much of what his mentor, Kurt Keener, did in terms of managing the locker room and managing egos, which is so important when you have teams and talent of that caliber. Yeah. I used to, I would say it in jest, but it was true. I used to call Kurt Keener, the Zen master of the MHSAA. Yeah. That he was the Phil Jackson of the state of Michigan high school basketball, and I just think
he said that.
Right.
He said that in the interview.
Exactly. And so I think Rick just takes so much of that. And if you remember back when Rick was Kurt's number 1 assistant at Kurt's last 7, 8, 9 years at Country Day, at the last couple of years, Kurt would be talking to the referees, and he'd hand the clipboard over to Ricky. And this was when Ricky was 28, 29, and he'd be designing the plays for teams that would win state championships, for teams that had McDonald's All-Americans on, teams that had guys that played in the NBA on them.
He coached at the McDonald's All-American with Kurt Keener. He said that was one of the best experiences he's ever had. So he set a goal, and then he did everything he needed to do to achieve the goal, and there's still a lot more to grow this thing, to put this thing at the level that it used to be, and the level that he was used to playing for Kurt Keener and coaching under Kurt Keener at Country Day. To put him at that kind of, when you think of basketball in the state of Michigan, you think of this. And for 30 years under Kurt Keener, one of the first schools you mentioned was Country Day. Yeah. And I think Rick wants to do the same thing with Brother Ray. And not only that, he also learned from legendary Mike Turner, who was his coach at Albion, who was also Milton Barnes' coach. He was there 35 years.
Last thing I'll say, I want to throw it over to TJ, was I don't think we just had 2 former Albion Britons. I'm pretty sure both of those guys were team captains.
Oh, yeah. Hall of Famers for their team.
So Rick
he won 85 games while at Albion, did Rick Palmer, which was a career record.
And assistant coach of Mike Thomas.
Yeah.
Right.
Or, excuse me, a teammate of Mike Thomas at Albion.
And he mentioned they had they named it Mike Turner Court now there, and they had that showcase where they had Jackson and Brother Rice and Mike Thomas and East Kentwood.
Marcus Gill,
yeah, exactly.
Who was a Murray Wright guy who wound up going to Albion as well. But let's say this. We talked about coaching trees and stuff like that in the past. And what Rick Palmer has done, just being able to, he comes from a I've been there, I've done that. This is who I played with. So he's been inside and outside and been able to see from all points of view, if you ask me. At the same time, you look at what country day might have been if
they would have given the job
they
to
give
Rick.
the job to Rick Palmer. Obviously, Kirk Keener winds up leaving as athletic director, and they wound up going kind of in a different direction. Keener now a Hall of
Frankly,
Famer.
the program has never recovered.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it
Edmund
is.
Sumner was their kind of like their last hurrah. Wound up winning a state title with him. Probably should have won Mr. Basketball if anybody's listening. But yeah, that's neither here or there. But anyways, yeah, Rick Palmer's done a great job. I imagine that he'll be able to keep that job at Brother Rice. As long as he wants to. Obviously, if you have success, it's one of those things where
for whatever reason,
they remember you.
Basketball was an afterthought for 30 years, and Rick had just say he breathed life into that program is an understatement.
Yeah.
I mean, the energy, the commitment, the dedication, just the whole vibe is totally different, and they're fast tracking towards reaching old Brother Rice basketball status and old Country Day basketball.
And like there is at all Catholic League schools, there is an inter-school competition between
football.
the athletes on which program's going to, do the best. And Brother Rice, of course, in various sports, now have basketball in the mix to be in that conversation. If you want to listen to the entire conversation, it was a really great conversation. You can go to Spreaker.com, just search State Champs Sports or State Champs Michigan and find the Hangtime show, and you can listen to that conversation, or you can watch it on YouTube. So just find the State Champs Network YouTube page, and then you can watch our entire conversation. We'll also put it up on the State Champs Michigan Facebook page. All right, we're going to get into the rankings. This is the second to last rankings that we'll have on the season. You can find them right now at statechampsnetwork.com. Muskegon jumped up a spot to number 5 as they beat Mona Shores and Holland. Warren Michigan Collegiate leaps from 9 to 6, beating Romulus Summit Academy North for the Charter School Championship. UofD Jesuit goes from 5 to 8. Ann Arbor Huron now 9. Warren Lincoln 10. Romulus Summit Academy drops from 8 to 11.
Well, I had to give some credit to the Charter League, the winner. Michigan Collegiate. James Scott's done a fantastic job. They're obviously Dylan Grant, one of the top juniors, if not the top junior in the class. He and Fat, 1 and 2, depending on who you're talking to. I went to the Final Four, so you have DEBSA, what they've done in the past. You have obviously Romulus Summit losing to Warren Collegiate in the championship, and the team that I imagine that everybody is looking over their shoulder for the coming years is Old Redford, who have one of the, let's say this, 2 of the top freshmen in the state. We get to brag on the freshman class, this 2026 class, and it's been great to do that over the last few weeks. But Jaquan Stennis at 6'6", 6'7". He's also a standout football player, but he's an impact player. They wound up losing the game to Michigan Collegiate. I think at one point, they had 8 turnovers and only had 2 points off of that. So I imagine that they're going to wind up maturing, and in the future, you'll see Old Redford being in that top 20, top 10, and I imagine in the top 5. And then Kilgore is another player who's been phenomenal for them as well as a point guard, and he's only a freshman. And so I had to give them their props, and I thought that they deserved to get bumped up that much higher. And remember, Michigan Collegiate, what they only lost to Grand Rapids Christian on a questionable call, and I think their other loss is to Brother Rice. So with that being said, I think they're definitely deserving of that number 6 ranking.
They beat St. Mary's.
Yep.
I know St. Mary's this year isn't what they've been the last couple of years, but Collegiate, took out St. Mary's.
And Collegiate has a lot of size. That's the other thing. I always thought that, coaches, keep at least somebody on their team, so in case they have to change clothes with them, that goes to Mike Fratello and Spud Webb back in the day. But James Scott, probably being one of the most vertically challenged players, to wear the Michigan Collegiate gear this year. I'm not going to say uniform because obviously being a coach, but I think that they can make a lot of headway, and so I think the state will learn a little bit more about Michigan Collegiate in the next month.
All right, well, we're going to talk a little bit about them coming up here in the next minute or so as we get ready to close out the program. Just a little preview of what you can expect. Of course, district playoffs start next week, but first off, of course, Friday, big game, Operation French Games. Operation Friendship at Callahan Hall, and you've got UofD Jesuit and King getting together, and then you've got, of course, Brother Rice and Cass, which I know that when I was talking with Farmer, he's like, number 1 versus number 2. I'm like, well, for us, it's number 1 versus number 3. But, you know, regardless, 2 really good games, and what a great teaser into the playoffs.
Well, I said last week, whoever winds up winning this Operation Friendship game, they will be my number 1. And depending on how the game goes, they might be 1 and 2 after that.
Right.
And there's no fault to North Farmington at all. I mean, at the end of the day, the beautiful thing about high school playoffs here in Michigan is everybody makes it. Everybody's got a shot.
That's right.
I mean, you could be sub 500, and all of a sudden, I mean, you could be Detroit
Everybody's
Rogers.
ranked number 1.
Yeah, everybody's ranked number 1 here in another March 6th. So you know, it's a great rebirth. You know, teams have. You know, they have players that are eligible, or they come off of injury, or maybe you just have a team that winds up gelling late, and then can make that run. And again, all you need is just that one run, and you know, knock off a team, and next thing you know, you're off to the races.
And it's big for either one of those teams. For Jesuit to get back on a winning, you know, tilt as they head into what's going to be a very difficult playoff run, and if King, you know, who fell in a classic, you know, in the PSL championship, if they can get an upset win and really have that momentum going in, if Brother Rice can beat Cass Tech, that's just going to really propel that team. And if Cass Tech, who you know nothing more, had been on the top of the mountain and said, you know, come, we'll take on all comers. And if they do what's necessary and get it done, then that is going to be the favorite in Division I.
That's just, I can't imagine having a better 2-game slate for whatever I don't know what the charge at the door is. But it's worth that plus more. You're going to get 2 slugfests.
And it's going to be hype.
You're going to have a lot of great talent on the floor, great talent on the bench. I have always said that I think Callahan Hall is so underrated as a venue, and and this is a whole other episode, but it's just unfortunate that U of D can't get that place rocking on a regular basis, because I've been in there when there's been great high school basketball games, and it's just a great place to watch a game.
Yeah, I mean,
some of the state quarterfinals we've seen in that building.
Places rocking. I can't. I'm jealous of the people that got to experience it in the '70s. I heard that was the hottest ticket in all of Detroit, to go watch those Titans that Dick Vitale coached.
You want to go see Dave Bing, and you want to see Terry Durod. I'm going to go see Terry Durod.
But I just heard that was just an amazing atmosphere that lasted after Vitale left as well, because in the early '80s that team was. But they've never been able to recapture it.
Well, they've had a little bit of times. I remember even Rashad Phillips when he was there. You know, you had
2 tournament
two tournament runs, but I mean,
tournament and wins in the tournament.
Yeah, if you look at old, I mean, you can go back and revisit old video if you weren't there at the games. But yeah, that crowd then was rocking, and it's one of those things where when the energy really starts flowing. I want to say this. If you remember, was it Clarkston and Dakota? And I don't remember who was in the other quarterfinal. When they were at Callahan. When they were at Callahan, when you really had the crowds there rocking, and everybody was bringing their crowds, and that place is huge. Like you can have 7,500 people in there. It's rocking, and you could still go up there and you can count 2,500 empty seats there. But yeah, that's it's a wonderful thing. Hopefully, there's some updates that are going along over at 6 Mile in Livernois. But we'll find out hopefully sooner than later. But hopefully in the next few years.
Well, let's get into some real quick district talk before we close out of here for the week as we end the regular season. And we're going to have Scott talk on Division I, and TJ's got some Division II. We'll start with TJ. TJ, the Division II is a couple districts I know you're paying attention to, and one is District 59 at Hazel Park.
59 at Hazel Park. Ferndale, if they wind up winning as they should, as expected, based off of their ranking, based off of who they have and all that stuff. I think that they'll wind up facing Old Redford. I think it will be one of those things where Ferndale has had their run. I believe that they still wind up winning this game, but like I said, with the Charter League, they're going to be looking at Old Redford over their shoulder this year, and right now they're still pups and stuff like that. So they're able to put their hand down. I think Ferndale winds up walking away with this win. Maybe not walking away, but I think that just having that much more experience will wind up leading them through. Even though Ray Reeves, who is the coach at Old Redford, has definitely had plenty of talent. He's been through some wars.
That's the opener, too.
And
Ferndale's got to play Old Redford to start.
Yep. So, well, actually, it's Ferndale University.
Sorry.
Yep. But that game will be on Wednesday. But Old Redford has a bye, and then Farmington or Ferndale has a bye as well. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what that matchup let's say that presents itself, and I think it's just going to be a beautiful thing for the future of what we're going to be able to see in Michigan over the next few years with Old Redford.
And then district number 60 is the one that features Warren Michigan Collegiate and Warren Lincoln.
Don't discount Warren Fitzgerald either. They're playing on Monday. Warren Fitzgerald beat Warren Lincoln. If they play again, well, Warren Lincoln just beat Warren Fitzgerald for the MAC Blue title, and so this will could be the fourth time that they play each other this year. That Warren Lincoln, let's say it's Warren Lincoln versus Warren Michigan Collegiate in the district final. I'm really expecting for that to be. That's going to be a battle. Warren Lincoln, that's where it's being hosted. Records out the door. I think that if I'm a college coach, that's a game that I'm going to. If I'm a fan of basketball, that's the game that I'm going to. And obviously, there are going to be a lot of great district finals. But that is up there, arguably, with any of them in the state. And the other wonderful thing about that is we might be able to see that again next year, as Warren Michigan Collegiate has a lot of juniors. Warren Lincoln has a little bit of a mixture of seniors, juniors, and sophomores, but their star backcourt with the Blackwell twins, only sophomores. We could definitely see them for the next couple of
I love the
2025.
That the Macomb Athletic Conference is getting that PSL coaching flavor injected into them. Vito Jordan over at Fitz, Wydell Henry at Lincoln, and they're both building those programs.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, well, in Division 1, Scott's going to comment on a couple of districts. One District 22, that's Cass Tech's district, that includes River Rouge and Fortson and King.
Yeah, so I'm just smacking my lips for what could be a Cass King rematch. I think, Rouge or Fortson could play sleeper. But what we saw in the PSL championship was, it was an instant classic. And even though King lost that game and they blew a lead at the end, I actually think that game should give them a lot of confidence. Normally I wouldn't say that with an ending like that, but I think that it just sets the tone for what should be a great rematch.
And that's what makes this Friday's game against UD Jesuit so interesting. Is how they respond.
Yes, they'll both be in the house. They'll both be scouting the other one, one before their game and one after the game. So that should just be a blockbuster district.
And one that is probably not going to get a lot of attention, but you want to talk about District 7, hosted by Milford. It's got the Walled Lake Schools and Milford in it.
So I guess my last two things I'm going to touch on are Lakes Valley Conference related. But, this is Walled Lake Western, Milford, and Lakeland. And this is no disrespect to Walled Lake Northern and Walled Lake Central, but those three teams are going to slug it out for this. Milford's the host. They've got the two best players in that league right now are Sam Lewis at Milford and Drew Lundquist at Lakeland. Western's got Will Ludwig and Dylan Smith. Dwayne Graves on the bench there has had some tournament runs when he was at Losser and then Bloomfield Hills and went to the state championship game with Yante Mayton. But I'm just, if I had to pick who's going to win right now, I'd say Milford just because they're hosting it. Sam I Am. Lewis is going to, pencil his name in there with the greats that have ever put on a Maverick uniform. And before they were the Mavericks, I think they were the Redskins. And I mentioned a little shout out to the old school Milford basketball program. I said Sam Lewis and this group is hearkening back to the Armstrong era. And Scotty Armstrong was like a 4-year varsity player, late 80s, early 90s that, rewrote all their record books. And I think Sam Lewis is, you're hearing echoes of that.
That's cool.
Cool. Learn how to play in Camp Dearborn.
Yeah, exactly. And then finally, the Clarkston district number 6.
Clarkston's obviously the runaway favorite here, but I think Mott could potentially come out of this district and upset Clarkston at home. I know Clarkston they still have an over 500 record. They played in the OAA Red. They didn't They weren't the world beaters that they have been in the past. Timmy Wassel's a great coach. They still have guys that play Clarkson-style basketball. They're not going to beat themselves. They're going to be disciplined and fundamentally sound, and that can win you games in March, whether or not you have a lot of talent or not. But I don't have a great feeling about this group. And again, that's nothing against Tim or Clarkson. I just don't think this group has really meshed the way I kind of expected to. And I just wouldn't be shocked if Mott pulls the upset there. They've got Caleb Osborne, who could be the best. I just named two guys in Lundqvist and Lewis. You could make an argument that Caleb Osborne is the best basketball player in the LVC, but I don't think there's a question that he's the best football player in the LVC. He's committed to Toledo recently, a quarterback that just does everything. But Caleb Osborne, the Warren brothers, Jacoby Manyweathers, who's a really underrated floor general. Sean Moore's the coach there, played on the back-to-back Class A state championship teams in the 2000s. So I think this could be the first district Mott's brought home, I believe, since the Jeff Jason era, which was a decade ago.
At least a decade ago. Jeff Jason is like 40.
Well, no, Jeff left, and then Dave McGowan took over, and now. But and Jeff's still around. He's very active. He's just not the varsity coach
doing
anymore.
hair commercials.
But I'm predicting the upset that Mott will come out of that district.
Well, we shall see. We will find out because they get going on Monday. So next week we're talking. Basically, what we'll be doing is doing a few recaps, but mostly kind of previewing what district finals are matched up. So we'll have a lot to talk about next week. Make sure you join us here on State Champs Hangtime.
State Champs, Michigan's Hangtime is presented by Lawrence Technological University. Visit LTUathletics.com and recruit yourself. Hangtime is also brought to you by the Michigan High School Athletic Association, promoting the value and values of educational athletics. The Michigan Army National Guard, a proud partner of the MHSAA. The Detroit Athletic Club Foundation's Athlete of the Year Awards. Applications being accepted now through March 6, 2023 for the male and female high school Athletes of the Year. Check out previous winners and download the application today at dacathleteoftheyear.com. And the Basketball Coaches Association of Michigan. Find out more at bcam.org.